Hey guys, we are back with another one clip, 3 grades. In the last one, we had a clip that didn't have that much difference in the colors. So I thought, why not do one of my favorite drone clips that I've shot myself and kind of work with that. It's a little bit of a difficult clip, so I think that's perfect for showing you how to do 3 different grades. So let's jump into it and head into Davinci. All right, guys, we are inside Davinci and I've jumped straight onto the color grading tab. This is the clip that we're working with today. It is a clip from Bali. This is a tough clip because you will see in a second when we convert this from D-Log that it was shot in, D-Gamut and D-Log. I'm going to convert it into Davinci Wide Gamut just to kind of get that workspace. And from this one, we are going to go Davinci Wide Gamut, Davinci Intermediate, Rec 09, Gamma 2.4. So just going to label these two, D-Log to DWG, Davinci Wide Gamut. This one is Davinci Wide Gamut to Rec, just so you can still see the names. Okay, so right now inside we are working in Davinci Gamut. Now you can see that the colors are already way too green, at least for my taste. I don't really like this look. I think it's oversaturated and it doesn't look that nice. So the first thing I still want to do is add the contrast as always. So I'm going to add some harsher contrast, which is just going to emphasize the way that the colors are and the way that I don't like them. So I'm going to head into our second node here. I'm just going to turn up the offset, and this is the wrong node. So I'm just going to copy it to the third node and up the offset a little bit, reduce the gain, reduce the lift a little bit again, and up the gamma. And I think this is a much more pleasing look so far, but I still don't like the colors. I think the camera captured it a little bit wrong. So I'm going to warm it up a little bit by applying 200 in the warmer tones. That makes it a little bit better, but it's still way too green. So I'm going to turn up the tint towards the magenta. And I think around 15 maybe will be good. Yes, so I like this a lot more. Now it's got this more, still way too saturated, but it got this more natural feel of the sunset that was coming in from a sunrise that was coming in from the right. And I think the colors are a little bit more pleasing. At least they have some more nuance and they are a little bit warmer. And you can see over here it was way too cool as well. So that is our basic corrections. Let's just label these nodes. This was the contrast. This was our exposure. And this is our temperature balance. Now let's correct the colors for just a simple and pleasing look as we did in the last one. So I'm just gonna make, you can already see kind of where the colors are. So I'm just gonna take 2 nodes in between here, and then I'm gonna try and work around these greens to make them a little bit more yellow. Not a lot, but just a little bit. Then we are heading into the saturation. I'm gonna do sort of the same points here. I'm gonna desaturate it just a little bit to get some of that hard saturation out. And already now I think it looks a lot better. Then for our luminance, I'm going to do sort of the same thing, just going to lower luminance a little bit here. And I think already from just doing these few adjustments, let's just add a node for curves. I think that looks a lot better. So if I just take all these nodes, see what we've done. We've gone from this very saturated green washed out look to this in just a matter of clicks, just a matter of a few seconds. I think that is very, very nice. So let's grab a still of this and label it grade 1, which is just our base grade without much going on in terms of like stylistic preferences or anything. Now I want to go in and I want to continue from this grade, but I want to make something that I think we're going to go for the desaturated one first actually, and then we're going to make the kind of teal and orange look in the end, because then we're going to apply some mask as well. So we're already working with saturation, so let's just head back into our curves here and just play around with the saturation even more. That's way too much. So I think around here will probably be good. I want this very muted and desaturated look. And I'm going to head into our hue again here. And I'm just going to see if I can kind of get a little bit more of this bluish green look, and then head back into the saturation, desaturated a little bit more. This might look a little bit weird, but I think it will make sense in a minute. Head back into our hue and just kind of adjust this a little bit. So like so, which is a weird green color now. But now I'm gonna head into the primaries. And now I wanna add blue and green. And I wanna remove some red Then I want to add some more red and remove some blue and remove some green. I think I want to remove a bit more green and a bit more blue, maybe even one step further, taking it to this. Gonna add a little bit more red. I'm just gonna play around with this to make sure that I feel like it's in a good spot for kind of like our desaturated look here. I think we are at a pretty okay spot now. Still looks a little bit weird, but I think it's okay. At least the colors are better now. I think they are more green again instead of this blue, very weird washed out look, but it's still desaturated and I'm starting to like how it looks. I'm gonna apply another one here and then I'm gonna call that for the log wheels. I'm just gonna go in and see if doing something to the shadows here will make a difference, and I think it will. So I'm gonna push a little bit more blue into the shadows, 15, maybe add a little bit more green and then remove some red, so around 10. Then I'm gonna increase the luminance like so. Now it's a bit more green bluish again. I think that's okay for now. Then for the midtones, I'm gonna see if we are gonna add a bit more warmth into that again. Maybe actually remove some of that green and remove some of that blue that we just added, kind of doing the same thing as we did before. And I think we want to turn back up the shadows a little bit and then maybe remove some of what we did. Just drag it back a little bit to get it back to a nicer spot. I think this is pretty nice already. Now I'm gonna add another node, and this one we're gonna head back into the curves, but we're gonna call it sat curve, because now I want to work even more around with the saturation of the overall image. So I'm just gonna make nodes or points all the way here. Maybe actually drag this node a little bit in, and then I'm gonna try and play around with the saturation here, not too much. So, and then definitely the luminance as well to make it darker. Just gonna drag down the luminance here. Now we're getting back into that a little bit more washed out look. But then I want to go in and play around with our saturation here. So I want to go in and desaturate everything by like 10 to begin with, maybe even more. Go down to 30. That was definitely way too much. So 45, just to do it a little bit. And then I want to control it in the curves more overall. Go into luminance versus sat. I'm gonna make a point around here. Just drag it down. These will be the darkest points. That will then have no saturation. You can kind of see how the blue cast here is disappearing. Now you can see that we are getting back to full black in the shadows here. That will help a little bit. And then I'm gonna drag this one down and then drag this down a little bit as well. So now we're kind of controlling the curves here a little bit more, and maybe make this one a bit better as well. Okay, now we ended up with a weird blue cast to everything again. So I'm gonna head back into the primaries and just see if we can do something here. So I'm gonna push a little bit more red into the gamma, maybe a bit green and a bit blue back. And then I think I'm gonna remove some of the green and blue that we put in here. Not all of it, just a little bit. Maybe push in a little bit more of the warmth. Kind of just get it back to where we are at now. I like this very muted look. I think it does look good, but I might want to go into our contrast again. We were at the beginning and just kind of darken everything a little bit more, because I think that's needed for this desaturated look. Just pushing in the contrast even more. I think now we're starting to get somewhere nice. Then head into the curves for our colors. Now we're just going back in and adjusting everything a little bit. Gonna head that back up. Actually gonna get it all the way back almost to where we were in the beginning. Gonna push a little bit more of those green tones back in. And because we're doing it all the way in the beginning, before we did everything else, this applies to everything that's happened afterwards. So all our desaturation up here will be affected by this. That's why we can pull back some of the colors and get back. So I'm just going to push a little bit more of this into it as well, and then going to look at the luminance. Just going to give it a little bit more luminance as well. And now I actually think it looks very good. There's still something with these green tones up here. Maybe look at the temperature. That definitely makes a difference. So let's just check if we wanted to pull that up or down. I think we actually want to head into the primaries and then just look at the gain. See if we can get a bit of a nicer look back into the gain. Just gonna apply some green and some red and remove a bit of blue. And that doesn't really do the trick. Gonna try again with a bit red. And this is one of the situations where I just want to grab the gain and see what we're actually doing and what we want. So we want it to be around these red or orange tones, but not too much. So I'm just going to drag it slowly back again to having almost no effect. But I think this is a little bit better, just to get a little bit more warmth into this. And I think overall that looks pretty good. Maybe head back into the curves and just kind of take, that was the luminance. So just gonna go into the hue here. Just kind of gonna see if we can drag on these hues. That's exactly what we had here, and just mute them a little bit again. The same with the saturation. Already muted quite a bit, but I'm gonna go in here and then I'm gonna see if we can just adjust that a little bit more, like so. I think that's a pretty good look. Some of it is still a bit too saturated. So let's take our saturation, luminance and sat here, our top luminance curve. Just gonna decrease it a little bit more, which is the top areas here. That's just being desaturated a little bit. So you might drag this back up a slight set here to get it back to where it was. And even though we have some weird red colors going on now, I might actually want to try and adjust that. So I'm just gonna do another curves here at the end, and now I think we're stretching it to be where I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be too many of the same adjustments, but I just want to head in here and just slightly adjust this hue and this one over here. The saturation, just desaturate it a little bit so it's not as strong. And that definitely did the trick, just to get some of this saturation out of this. And I'm still not entirely happy with what's going on up here. We could fix that with some mask and some more desaturation, but for this overall look, I think that's pretty okay. So we went from this in the beginning to this very desaturated look. I like the colors. We could do a lot more, but in sake of this video, let's stop it here. Let's grab a still and call it grade 2. We're going to go back to the drawing board, kind of. I think we want to go back to what we had in grade 1. So I'm just going to apply that grade again and start from here. So I'm going to go in and add another primaries here. Go in. Let's just hide the gallery again and get a bit more space here. All right. So now we're going to go for this very teal and orange kind of look. So I'm going to add more blue than green and remove a little bit of red. Add back the red, actually just going to counter exactly what I've just done for the lift. And that already gives us a little bit more. Now we saw before with the contrast curve that could actually be pushed a little bit more. So I'm going to start doing that. Just push it in a little bit. Not the highlights as much, but just the shadows. And I'm going to give it a little bit more of a cinematic glow, with just lifting the shadows a little bit and lowering our whites. This is the black, sorry. Like so, just dragging that in a little bit, kind of giving us that moodier look. And I'm gonna raise the midtones just a slight tad as well. And I think we might have gone too far with the blacks, so just gonna see around here. I think that's better. All right, heading back into the primaries and just seeing if we want to add a little bit more of that teal look and remove a little bit of it, but just not all of it this time. Added a bit more warmth in, and I think we're getting somewhere good now. We have this more faded greens, bluish colors here, and then we have the warmer tones up here. I think I'm gonna leave it at that for this look here, and then I want to add some masking. So to get this really teal and orange feel, the sun was coming from over here. I want to go in and adjust the colors, everything a little bit more, but I want to control the light while I'm doing it so that I can give it this more warm look. So I'm gonna create another node here. I'm gonna call that shadows. I think for this one, I'm gonna add a parallel node here. I'm gonna call this the highlights, and then another one down here that will kind of be our mid, which are more like our mid adjustments here. So for the shadows, first up, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna drag a mask in from the side. I'm gonna feather it in quite a bit, like so. Feather in a little bit more. Then I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna reduce my lift. Not that much, but a little bit. And then I'm gonna go into my curves again, lift off the shadows a little bit more, but only just adjust the curves here to give that way darker look here, and actually just raise the blacks a little bit more. And then I'm gonna go into my lift here and just push in a little bit more of that teal, not too much, like so, giving it a bit more darkness over here. But I actually want to apply that for our shadows over here too. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to add another one on top of this. Just going to drag this one in and raise it a little bit over here. I'll feather it in definitely, and then make it a bit smaller, maybe a bit slimmer as well. Kind of like so. Just seeing what it selects in here. Slim it up a little bit more, soften it out. I think that really makes a difference, because now it's not only this part over here, but it's also this part that is covered in more shadows and more of that kind of teal look that we're going for while the sun is coming in from over here. So let's add the highlights. We're gonna emulate the sun. Went to this node now. Just gonna kind of make it a mask like this. Make it a little bit bigger, like so. And just gonna soften that to 100%. So that I can really get that look going here. And I actually want to make it even bigger, just so that I have more room to work with. Stretch it out a little bit and something like that. Zoom in. I'm gonna start by increasing the gamma quite a bit. I think that looks really good up here already. And I'm gonna lower the whites a little bit, and then I'm gonna drag up just to push it even more. And then into the primaries here, I want to add more of that red yellow glow, but I want to keep it in kind of like near the green tones. So it's just warming it up a little bit, but it's not giving it too much, like so. I think that looks pretty good. I really like how the contrast is working with us now. So we kind of like just controlling the light a lot more. And then for the midtones, the last one of these, I'm gonna go in here, drag this one in and select the mids here. Just gonna add a little bit more contrast, because I always think that draws in the attention a little bit more. Up the lift a little bit. You just see that pulls it together a little bit. And then I'm actually going to go in and increase the offset. And then I might lower the gain a little bit. I might lower the lift and then increase the gamma just a slight bit here. And then for the gamma, I want to push a little bit of that lighter tones in as well, without it getting too much, which I think it is now. Might go in and just desaturate everything between the oranges and the greens a little bit here, just to make that the effect is not too much. And I think that is pretty good. It's not exactly teal and orange, but we're working with green tones, so everything is kind of in that space. We have warmer colors towards our greens and our highlights here, and we have some darker colors and some more blue pushed into it here. We could definitely add another mask in here and make it even darker, and we could go in and try and play around with kind of like just lowering the gamma a little bit for our shadows here, without this part over here getting way too dark. Maybe lowering the gain a little bit too, just to see what we're doing. And now this mask is definitely becoming way too strong over here, so I think we need to spread that out and maybe make it a little bit smaller. We definitely need to soften that out way more to balance that feel. And I think we lost too much detail in this part now. So I might increase the lift a little bit and go back into our curves and just lower that so that we don't lose that much detail. I think that's okay. I don't know if I like this part over here. Might want to try and just turn that off. We definitely need it there, but maybe we should have made another mask and just controlled it even further. I think that would have been better. But for the sake of ending this video very soon, I think we will just keep it here. So I'm gonna add another still here and call that grade 3. And then I want to turn off basically everything we've done creative and maybe actually reset everything, apply grade 1, and then let it be like this. So this was our base grade. Now let's put on the wipe effect and see, this was our, more space. This was our wipe effect, or this was our desaturated look. So we went from this, which I think was pretty all right, to a way more desaturated look, really like how the colors turned out in the end of this one. And then for our last grade, this is what we came to. So we went from this, that was our base grade, to this that is still darker and maybe a little bit more saturated than the other one, but definitely has some more play in the highlights, and maybe this is blown out a little bit too much, so we could do some more work. This is kind of just to give you the idea of how you can work with these different techniques and how you can apply some colors and some grading like this one. So that's what I have for you today. I hope you learned something. I hope you liked it. And until the next time, take care.